There you go. Those of you on YouTube. World's smallest blueberries. Things must be about a quarter-inch round. I don't know where they got these things. Never seen blueberries this small around. But, hey, like, never let good food go to waste. Blueberries, one of your number one superfoods of all time. They're hard to eat, though. Kind of hard to grab onto them. Lots of fun stuff going on today. We're going to hit IE Newswire on Facebook here in a sec. I got to learn to turn my device on too. Everybody's into not turning on the right buttons today. But we got it going now. As you heard, that funky slide guitar music comes in every day, live at 5 on IE Newswire, as we did on Facebook. And I did this. I had found these at world's smallest blueberries. They must be about a quarter-inch round. I mean, there you go, the close-up on there. But as they say, never let good food go to waste. Blueberries, probably your number one superfood of all times, and a lot of rankings are up there in the top 5 or 10 all the time. Eat them all the time. But as we do, we're coming to you on a thankful Thursday. Thankful that we're still alive, and our politicians, our lying sack of crap politicians, haven't buried us of that, even though they still want to keep us on the lockdown deal. Interesting factoids that came out on the Mario. I keep calling him. His dad was governor too. Did I leave the small whiteboard up there by you? Yeah. Okay. Send it over here. Because I'm going to do some statistics. Eddie George won't be with us, not because he couldn't. Well, he can't. Not because he physically or there's anything wrong with him today, but his internet and phone connection and everything, and most of Hemet is out at this particular time. So we'll be doing a solo. Dr. Kelly Victory will be with us after the bottom of the hour to give us an update on all things COVID-19, facts not fear, on this whole idiotic endeavor going on. New York. We'll start with New York because that's the first one. He does the first press conference coming up. They finally did some antibody testing in the good old state of New York. Just as in Los Angeles, where they've been saying, 400 people have died and we have 15,000 cases and we have a 5% death rate of that. Well, when the USC study came out and there was 200,000 to 400,000 that they found, or their projection is, well, now the death rate gets to be 1 to 0.2%. So if you just take the New York City metro area, which is about 8.5 million people, and you go by the new statistics out, because antibody testing shows 1.8 million of them have probably been exposed to the coronavirus. Now you take that by the approximately 9,600 deaths in that range, and you come up with a percentage of 0.5%. So, this is even more interesting, and this is in New York City, the hellhole, as Dr. Fauci said, the petri dish of spreading of coronavirus. You got high density, you got people crammed in, air conditioning, yada, 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 yada. So you take the whole state, 12 million people, about 930 deaths. You get, what do you think the percentage is? Here you go. 0.2% is the death rate based on what they have. So, just as Los Angeles is much different than most of the rest of California, and New York City is definitely way different, than the rest of the state of New York. And New York's a pretty big geographic state. I mean, when you take Buffalo, which is at the extreme, probably angled end of that place, and everything in between, Chemung, New York, or whatever, out in the hinterlands, it's a lot different than the cesspool of New York City. And at the worst possible case of scenario that we've got where everybody's just going crazy and we've shut down the whole country and everything, and their death rate now is at half of 1%, 0.5. Gavin Newsom made a very good revelation. Did you know in November of 2020 that California's economy was devastated? We were in bad shape because he was blaming you, the folks, of why the ventilation was at the schools and bad, and because you didn't pass a $15 million bond and our economy was down. I thought, and maybe my ears were deceiving me, everybody's saying happy days are here again. We had $21 billion surplus, best job economy and everything going, and now he's trying to blame you for the schools being bad, because they don't have good ventilation. This is going to wind up. So at the Trump press conference today, the new muckety-muck, whatever, statistical guy with the charts and studies comes out with a study and says, guess what? Sunlight kills COVID-19 like within seconds. No shit, Sherlock. It has the most, because you've been hearing this rumors. Well, COVID, Fauci, well, we don't know. We think when it gets hot, this might be the one virus that survives in the heat, yada, yada, yada. Well, you know where it survives? Put up the chart. The one that was at the White House. You know where it survives? It survives when you're in enclosed areas where there's, yes, this is the best practices for every American. Heat and humidity suppresses COVID-19 indoors and outdoors. More activities out sunlight. Sunlight impedes virus transmission. Yeah, like it kills it within 30 seconds versus hours it sits inside. Commonly available disinfectants, bleach, alcohol, work to kill the virus. Goes back to, hey, wash your hands, keep yourself clean, go outside, do some activities, and everything will be fine. If you want to live in the hellhole of death, destruction, and despair of New York City, then take the consequences. Since Eddie George isn't there, and we'll get into the Idaho stuff because we brought out the story yesterday, but we have Dwayne in Idaho Skyping in. What is your take on the little bit of rendition I just rolled out?
Well, like yourself, I was out chopping wood the other day. So I tend to be outside more or less as much as possible. Tomorrow we'll be outside, of course, for the big rally in Twin Falls. So I agree. There was a debacle over somebody here that got arrested in Meridian for taking their kids to the playground. Now, she's a cop's wife, and she asked them to arrest her. They arrested her on trespassing. Now, the whole deal around this is she is a Tea Party person, and she is basically calling them to task. There's a group here now. I cannot tell you my own impersonal poll taken by just my interactions with folks. They're beyond pissed. They want this state open. They want it open yesterday. Nobody that I know here has seen anybody spontaneously go into convulsions, tip over, and die from the coronavirus.
There you go. This study proves it. All the studies have. It's probably went through California. We'll have Kelly Victory on at the bottom of the hour. It's probably went through California. They're saying, doctors up and down the state were saying in November and December, we were getting hit by this flu-like virus. People were coming in with respiratory problems. We were putting them on ventilators and everything else. We couldn't figure out the hell why. We didn't know what it was. We couldn't test it. We didn't know what was going on, but we just got hit with a flood. Now we're coming back with the first death was in California now on February 6th. First known case in that. We have all the evidence now. 21% in New York City now have been tested positive for the antibodies. 4 or 5% in Los Angeles per the USC study of what's going on up and down the line. But you know what the big difference between L.A., where we're getting hit the worst, but probably our densest population, where we're getting hit the worst, but we're getting hit like 20 times less than New York City on the death rate, cases and everything else per population. But in Kern County, which is greater Bakersfield area, where it's very rural again, we're getting hit 20 times less than Los Angeles. So I don't know what it took these brain surgeons to figure out a study that any probably ditch bank Okie from Edgemont could figure out. Yeah, if you're outdoors, if you're sunlight, if you're not in the hellhole environment, if you're not cooped up, if you're not jammed in, if you're not 2 inches off everybody, breathing the same air, touching the same stuff, not washing your hands, having the homeless pee in the subways and on the buses in L.A. and everything else, then you're probably okay. It's probably going to be no more dangerous than the influenza, which kills about 1 or 2/10 of the population in the United States every freaking year.
It's, if there was ever a resounding empirical study on why not to live in high density population areas, this is it. Because if you look here to Idaho, we've had 1,170 cases of people. Now, here's the other thing that we've got to stop doing. We can't quote these figures without a qualifier. And the qualifier is they're following the CDC, World Health Organization statistical parameters for reporting. In other words, if you tipped over from cancer, if you got in a car accident, if you decided that you were despondent and hung yourself, if you had coronavirus in your system, it was related to the coronavirus. We've got to stop doing this because I think that is skewing the real numbers out to left field so that the Fauciites and the Brinksites can continue to force this garbage down our throat. Now, as I was pulling up to the house, I'm listening to talk radio, and the report was Fauci, or Donald Trump is no longer agreeing with Mr. Fauci about what we need to do in the future. According to Fauci, we should all just stay at home, locked down, waiting for our checks to arrive. By the way, what are we going to do with this money? It's all coming in. I work every day, and I do not. Listen, everybody, I don't want to pay you to sit on your behind. Get off your butt, protest this, go back to work. Quit just, oh gosh, I've got to put my mask on.
There you go. And I want
to play in the dirt.
And this is one of the things, and he did it again today, and I'm going to criticize Trump for this one. He did it yesterday, and he got the question again. And he's criticizing Governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp, for opening up businesses in Georgia off that saying, well, I disagree with I think he's doing it too fast, and he's not following our 3-point guidelines, and he's jumping ahead. No, Donald Trump, you should be down there tomorrow standing right next to Brian Kemp, the governor, and the fine citizens of Georgia, and listening to Dwayne here, getting them back to work, back to going, because this stuff is, it's been your guys like Fauci that have been giving us these bogus statistics and studies that have been screwing us and locking us down. It's time to stop this stuff, and stop it now. Stand up, be a man in the band on this stuff. Trump, you should be down in Georgia tomorrow with the citizens of Georgia, opening up Georgia, if your plan is really to open up America.
What he should do is go down there and take his golf clubs.
Yes.
Go play around to golf in Georgia. You know what? Tell everybody it's time we're done with this. Let me ask you a question. Have you seen any empirical scientific data that supports the worst case scenario that we were told that this was all going to end up in. And now you notice the next coming is, oh, well, it's going to come back worse. The second phase is going to be far worse. You better hold on. You know what, Fauci, you've been a liar since day one, and Brinks has been a liar. The World Health Organization has been caught lying. They're frauds. Same thing with the CDC. Years ago, I knew somebody that worked at the CDC, and when I called them out on the BS they were posting on Facebook and showed them their own papers from the CDC that warned you against getting vaccinations, that person had a meltdown and didn't want to talk specifics or any type of, scientific give and take. It was all about how it made them feel good. Well, you know what? I feel really good because I get off my butt and go to work every day. I get out and get sunshine. I go play outside with the cats or whatever. I don't care. But you know what? Staying cooped inside is the worst thing you can do. Again, like you pointed out, New York, people are literally physically stacked one on top of another. And there's where your largest outbreak is, New York City.
There you go. Well, the more density the population works out. You can be standing at 12 noon and July 4th in the center of New York City and you can't see the sun.
That's correct.
I mean, that place is, like I say, it's a freaking zoo. Again, if you want to live in that environment, fine and dandy. Knock yourself out. Do not put that model across the whole United States.
Don't expect us to pay for it with your screwed up ideas.
Yeah.
You know what? New York screwed themselves up. Let New York pay for it.
Yeah. Yeah, Cuomo screaming, saying you're broke and all this stuff and you need federal money. All this and blaming Trump and yada, yada, yada. Well, you know what? They spend almost twice as much per capita on their budget than California. California spends about $53.50 and New York State spends about $9,000 per capita. They almost spend as much as we do. That's how and he says we're broke. We don't have any money to do this, that, and the other federal government, yada, yada, yada. No, you take responsibility for what you did. You created it. You want the responsibility. You want to make the call. Then you figure it out. Don't come to daddy government or whomever to do that, to bail your butt out, bail you out of the bad decisions you make and the lifestyle choices New York City area, metro areas made. They like it. They own it, then let them deal with it. It might be harsh, but that's the reality. That's what freedom and liberty is all about.
Well, that's what it should be about. That's what this country was founded on, was personal responsibility, not government responsibility for your actions. They want to lump us all in, and like you're saying, they want to apply the New York model to Pig's Knuckle, Arkansas, population 4. Okay? It's irrational. These people call themselves scientists. They wouldn't know what science was if it fell out of a tree and hit them in the head with the proverbial Newtonian apple. I mean, they're just clueless. And they spout these statistics. You know what? I took statistics in college. Garbage in, garbage out. You can make statistics say whatever you want. The fact of the matter is, and I was talking with somebody today over aircraft stuff, but the sideline was, I asked them, they had been in Europe, and I said, what's it like in Europe? They just got off the plane today, this morning. They said they had a problem, and they went into the hospital to go, they tripped and fell and thought they broke their wrist. So they went in. They said it was chirping crickets. Nothing. Nobody in the hospitals. This is supposed to be a worldwide pandemic. The hospitals are supposed to be war zones. How much more of this are we going to take before we finally call these liars out for what they are? This is all about control and lockdown, and we should all be damn tired of it. Tomorrow, here in Twin Falls, Idaho, the lieutenant governor of our state, thank God, is going to grow a pair of testicles, and we're going to recall this idiotic governor. We're protesting to make sure that this moron understands that the cop-out attitude of falling back on whatever the CDC decides instead of actually becoming informed and making a decision based on what our needs are, we're going to send the signal to this idiot, you know what? You're done. Get out. We don't want your kind here anymore. You've got two places here in Idaho that have had the problems. And you know what they are? They're resort areas like Arrowhead and Big Bear. It's McCall and Sun Valley. There's a little bit where the lady got arrested for the yard sale was up by Coeur d'Alene. Well, you know who runs Coeur d'Alene? That's all the ex-LAPD assholes that moved up here that retired to bring their California paychecks up here and buy up the homes. Well, they're the ones that are running that. They're a bunch of Nazis, okay? Literally. Well, so you've got these resort areas down here. Well, yeah, you get a lot of international traffic. There's people that come to Sun Valley from all over the world to go skiing. It's a world-famous place, right? Because it sits in a valley. It doesn't get a lot of sunlight, so the snow stays a lot longer. Well, gee, do you think maybe that might be an issue? So Sun Valley and McCall both shut down the airport. If you live there, they'll allow you to come and go, but transient traffic, no more. They'll gas you and flip you around, but you're not coming in to stay. Well, that sounds like prudent information. If your community's hit, you probably don't want to introduce another, variable into the mix. But statewide, Roy, nobody I know is even sick. Not sniffles, not runny nose, not watery eyes, nothing. I'll tell you what they are. They're damn tired of this lockdown, yes. And they're calling it what it is. And they're pissed, and they want to all get back to life as normal, and they don't want this staged, monotonous BS that our governor's trying to do. Same thing that Gavin Newsom's trying to do down there. Oh, no, we can't let anybody go out and play until we've got a vaccine, and every single person in California is tested and vaccinated. Hey, how about screw you, pal? You ain't putting a needle in my arm. Here's one for you. You guys are big on the abortion rights, right? Woman's body, right to choose. Her body, her choice. Guess what? My body, my choice. Not to take a spike, go to hell.
Yes, the whole thing of and we might play it when Dr. Kelly Victory's on the whole thing. Andrew Cuomo made the whole spiel on it today on the stuff, and that was the question. People were protesting up in Albany, which is the capital of New York, there, and he said, the death of that is you can take responsibility for yourself. But you could give me COVID-19 and I could die. That's a consequence of death. And economics is not a consequence of death. Well, just take a stab at the Harvard T.H. Chan study for public health, or School for Public Health study in 2016 that studied just the deaths they estimated by cancer in 2008-2010 were caused by the financial meltdown of 2008-2010.
No kidding. You mean there's a causal effect?
Take a guess at how many they were estimating in their study in 2016.
For what year period?
2 years, 2008 to 2010. 2 years.
1.5 million.
No, you're a little high. 250,000. They said 260,000 preventable cancer deaths. Just cancer deaths. Over the economic, just cancer deaths. Yeah, who knows what the number is, total deaths. And Cuomo's saying economics have nothing to do with that. Now, this thing has the potential with the, whatever it is, 20 or 30% unemployment, it's killing on that. Although it wasn't for economic reasons, hopefully it'll come back quicker if these politicians get their heads out of their rear ends. But, the economics have a major, probably the most impact, because how many hospitals like Harvard Medical School or Stanford University or UCLA Medical Center or University of Riverside Hospital here in Moreno Valley or wherever in Ethiopia? you take a poor country, poor countries do not have a medical system like we have. Hence, they have a very low life expectancy compared to ours.
Right, because they don't have the basic hygiene that we practice. It's been proven the way we got out of the Black Plague was we discovered, are you ready for this? Don't dump your fecal matter out in the street from your chamber pot. That's how they plumbing is what cured it. The fact that they were able to take the waste product from all the homes they used to literally dump it in the streets. And instead of doing that, they decided to develop a sewer system. Voila! Disease goes straight down. It's almost an inverse proportion to when it happens.
And you know what it takes to plumb that commode in your house and run the sewer systems? It takes those green dollar Benjamin bills that make that all run. And if you don't have that, you have no sewer system.
Oh, it also takes one more thing we're avoiding. You have to let people out of their homes to dig the frickin' ditch.
There you go. Because put up the story on the farts there, Jesse. Because you know what? Study in Australia says farts can transmit COVID disease. The study says.
For crying out loud!
They have that. There's experts with this guy saying that he said, but they have found in the fecal matter of COVID patients, they have found the virus in your fecal matter. So he's saying that. But just in a way, yeah. But you know why it will probably never spread? Because, in America, we have a very good plumbing system. You sit on the commode, it goes down to the sewer system, gone, voila. Any COVID virus that's in there is not going to survive anything or infect anybody anyway. So,
well, maybe somebody should tell this guy to quit sticking his head up a cow's ass. I'm just thinking.
Well, that's how absurd the thinking is of what we're. So what we're going to say? We're going to not allow you out in public because if you pass a little gas, you might. Even though most of us are masked up on that end of our stuff when we're out in public, but this is how absurd that they're going with this thing. Again, we got about a minute left, but again, I still think Trump should reverse course on his opinion of Governor Brian Kemp of Georgia. He should be down there tomorrow, standing with Brian Kemp and, more importantly, the good citizens of Georgia who are going back to work en masse over this whole situation. Got about a minute left to wrap her up.
I think that we all, and I encourage you to as well, everybody listening, we need to call and leave a message with the governor's office of Georgia, thanking them for leading the way back to sanity. Somebody had to be the guinea pig. Thank God somebody finally got their mind right. And, look to Idaho. We're going to make some changes. Everybody I know is beyond mad at this, and they're not sitting down for it. I have not worn a mask, will not wear a mask. I go to the grocery store, and I shop freely. And that's the way it's going to be. And I'm not going to change that. I know you don't change it. So, you know what? We are willing to accept personal responsibility and the risk that goes with that. And once again, I think, kudos to Georgia. Who would have thought? But you know what? I don't care. It's almost worth moving there. But you know what? What we've got to do, Roy, is we've got to take that idealism and that common sense and promote that.
Yes, that needs to spread across the other 49 states like wildfire, not putting a suppression on it like Donald Trump was trying to do at the press conference today. Like I said, I'll call the shot as I see him. If Trump's doing something I don't like, I'm going to tell you that straight up. Of all that.
I agree.
For those that accuse me of being a Donald Trump cheerleader, whatever, this and that. Hey, if I see something I don't like he's doing, I'll be the first to admit it. I haven't liked all this bailout stuff. I'm not red hot on that. I'm not red hot on this. Overall, I think he's doing a great job. Don't get me wrong. I'm not jumping off the bandwagon or nothing. But, You don't have to. Well, in fact, it's very dangerous to agree with anybody 100% of the time. Anyway, you do need that diversity of thought and opinion on that stuff. Thanks for being on, Dwayne, on that. We're sitting
Take
in
care.
for Eddie George, who couldn't make it not because anything's going wrong, but the internet, phone service, everything down in most of the greater Hemet area, so he couldn't be on with us today. But we'll have him on next week on next Tuesday. Hopefully, they'll get all their issues fixed down there in the great,
1 minute.
great area of Hemet. And I won't tell you earlier what they used to call Hemet, or the old nickname. Yeah, Jesse's giving me the big wave off as he's cracking up on the. Yeah, but he's busting up about the old nickname for Hemet on the. Oh, we're getting too far out of control. We'll get this thing back in shape when we come
30
back.
seconds.
We'll have Dr. Kelly Victory on to give us facts, not fear, on COVID, all things COVID-19, and more information coming out that's been proving what she's been saying on this show and practically anywhere else she could get it out has been almost 100%
All right, guys, here we
spot on.
go.
1490am.com and download your free phone app today.
IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed not necessarily those of the or it.
There we are. There's a funky slide guitar music that's coming in. It comes in every 5:30 Monday through Friday on IE Newswire Daily on the Mighty Met 1490 KMET. As we give you all the news and stuff in it, and we didn't have Eddie George on for Hemet News in the first half hour not because there's anything wrong with him, but the internet, phone service, and everything is down in most of the Hemet areas, so he couldn't be on today over that. So I hope they get those issues fixed for him in time, and we'll get him back on real soon. We're going to have, here coming up in a couple minutes, we'll have Dr. Kelly Victory on to give you an update on that. Lots of breaking news today, again, all over the place on COVID-19, up and down the dial of that. New study came out today, and we'll cover it on the press conference at the White House press conference. One of Donald Trump's minions, advisors on that, said sunlight kills COVID-19. You get out in the fresh air, that stuff's the survival rate of it is seconds. You're inside in a subway inside the 100 hotel hellhole of New York City, which is the vast majority of that. That stuff lays for hours. Look where it's doing the most damage. But if you go to the part of things where the new study is, Andrew Cuomo, governor of New York, there's our funky phone system. Governor of New York finally did some antibody testing. The rate of death now, because now we know the 21% or about 1.8 million have been infected in New York City. With the about 9,000 or 8,000 deaths in that, that's a death rate of 0.5%. In the entire state, the death rate in New York, in the entire state, is 0.2%. Now, Andrew Cuomo got a question today from one of the reporters, and it said, she asked, well, what would happen if, because they were protesting out there, the protesters out there, they want to go back to work. They're saying what kind of damage to the economy is going on, and yada, yada, yada. And Cuomo went into this rendition that economies, COVID-19 does not just only kills you, it can kill me. Economics cannot kill you. We have a study. We dug up a study from the Harvard P.H. Chan for Public Health study that was in 2016 that just estimates 260,000 people died as a result of the economic crisis in 2008 to 2010. That's just cancer deaths. So economics has a great amount to do with your health, your survivability, and how long you're going to live, and probably much greater than any virus, including coronavirus, is going on, that coronavirus ever will. But to update you on all this and all the greatest and latest news on all things COVID-19 and give you facts but not fear, we're going to have Dr. Kelly Victory on now. Welcome to the show. Kelly.
Hey, Roy. Great to be back with you guys. And it's really irresponsible, Roy, for Andrew Cuomo or anyone to claim that, quote, economic downturns or economic crisis doesn't impact health. That's patently absurd, and we've known for decades. You've cited one study out of the Harvard School of Public Health that talks about the increase in cancer deaths related to significant economic downturn. But we've known for decades that there's a very close relationship not only between increases in cancer, but increases in heart disease, hypertension, diabetes, certainly suicide and substance abuse go way up. So to say that the only victims during this pandemic are the people who actually contract COVID-19 and or die from it is not correct. And in fact, it wildly discredits the incredible impact that this is having on people. Not only, they call it an inconvenience. I keep hearing them say, well, yes, it's kind of an inconvenience for you to stay home. I'm saying, no, when you start destroying people's livelihoods, taking away their entire income, making it such that they cannot provide for themselves or their children, you start to see real significant impact on the health of the population. As I said, not just because people become depressed and frustrated, but because actual diseases, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, go up significantly under this type of stress.
I mean, the example of this, the ditch bank Okie way, I would say it, how many medical schools you see like Harvard, UCLA, Riverside Medical Clinic we have, or Riverside University Health System we have in here, in Ethiopia? There you go.
Sorry,
how many of these great hospitals that we have in America, like Harvard, UCLA, all the ones we have in here, you don't see them in Ethiopia because they have no money to put them together. They have no doctors, they have no ability. Hence, their survivability rate or their rate that they live is much shorter than ours because we have our economic power allowed us to build that. If we destroy that, it doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure out what's going to happen next.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, the toll that this whole public health response, this debacle on COVID-19, the impact that it has had, Roy, just on the healthcare industry has been tremendous. 2019 was already a record year for closure of rural hospitals. Many hospitals in less populated and rural areas were really hanging on by a thread and couldn't stay open. So right at a time when we were already having a number of those shut down, we entered into this ridiculous response to the pandemic that has now caused, hundreds and hundreds of hospitals around the country are facing bankruptcy because of the forced shutdown and the fact that they were not allowed to see anybody essentially other than COVID patients or emergencies. So they had to cancel everything that was elective. And that's the stuff that hospitals really, that's the bread and butter. That's how they stay afloat. You take something like Beaumont Health System in the state of Michigan. Beaumont's the largest health system in that state. They just laid off 3,000 employees, which is devastating. There are other hospitals that are just out and out closing, saying, we can't do it, we're throwing in the towel, and we're closing. So once we get on the other side of this pandemic, what we've now done is we've wildly decreased the access to health care for a vast number of Americans. People living in rural communities may not be able to even find a hospital functioning within their community. You're talking about people having to drive 60, 70 miles to find a hospital. And that didn't need to happen. So that you not only do you have doctors and nurses and technicians being laid off right now, but we're seeing actual hospitals close. And so the fallout from this, I think, is really devastating. And whether or not we will be able to rebuild that level of care, it certainly isn't going to happen overnight.
Yes, it is. And the other thing that I thought was the second thing that caught my eye was at the Trump press conference today, and I don't remember which muckety muck said this one, but he brought out the study of how coronavirus does not survive, or their study shows, out in the sunlight. It dies within seconds of that, but if you're in an inside air-conditioned environment, yada, 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 it survives for hours. So what's all this restriction of we can't go outside, to stay at home, do this, you can't go to the parks, you can't go to the beach, you can't go to work, you can't be outside, anything of this stuff? Seems exactly like they're putting us in the environment of New York City, where we have the highest death rate of that, and it's only 0.5%. Even the rest of the New York is at 0.2%, just like they're figuring LA and everywhere else is at that or less of this stuff. I mean, it seems to me like, tell me we're not living in some sort of bizarro world here.
Well, they are doing the exact wrong thing, for sure, on every step of the way, Roy. As you said, we know that this virus is heat labile. We know that it doesn't do well when exposed to warmer temperatures, even, ambient temperatures of 80, 85 degrees sunlight. And that is just like we should have known from 100 years ago. The Spanish flu epidemic of 1918 and 19, we know that the patients who did the best back then, 100 years ago, were those who convalesced outside. The hospitals were so busy, so overrun, that many patients had to be housed on beds out on the patio and out on the balconies. And the patients exposed to sunlight and fresh air did the best. So we know that. In addition to the fact that it's only common sense, my gosh, how much data do we need to know that being outside, riding your bike, going for a walk, going for a run, playing around a golf, all the things that keep you sane and active and healthy, that if you have that option versus sitting on your sofa eating a bag of Cheetos and watching, reruns of Gilligan's Island, I mean, really, the people, and it's, so I'm making light of it on one hand, but it is infuriating,
yes,
Roy, because it defies even the most. Your grandmother knew this stuff. You don't have to be an epidemiologist trained at Harvard to know this stuff. Your grandma knew it. Get outside and play. Get in the sunshine. So it's one thing to say, if people are ill or if people are at super high risk themselves, that they might want to think about limiting their exposure to others. But the idea of, causing the entire country and all of these mothers and children to, avoid the playground, and guys can't go out and play around a golf. I mean, these things are so ridiculous and so far beyond the pale as to be just, it's stunning. It's stunning.
Yes, and Jesse, make sure you put the links to all the stuff that we have in the comments so our listeners can pick this stuff up. The third thing that I wanted to get to at the press conference, and Trump reiterated today, and the thing, and for all of you that say, I'm a Donald Trump butt kisser, this, I like him, I'm not jumping off the bandwagon or nothing, but I disagree in this. He did it again today. He was asked a question about Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, who's opening up tomorrow a lot of businesses, getting people out saying, we're on it. We don't care about the CDC guidelines that have been screwing this stuff up anyway. Why should we? I mean, he isn't saying that's just me, but if I was in his shoes, I'd be looking, why am I listening to these people that have been pretty much wrong about this thing all the time? I think Trump should be down there tomorrow with Brian Kemp, and more importantly, the good citizens of Georgia that are going back to work, that are getting their state back to the way, not normal, the way it was prior to March 19th when Newsom kicked off these stay-at-home orders and Cuomo the next day. I disagree strongly with Trump. I think he should, if he's really serious about opening America again, he should have his butt in Air Force One down in Georgia tomorrow, supporting Brian Kemp, not criticizing him and saying I disagree with what he's doing. He's doing it too fast.
I agree. I think that in general, I think Trump's done a reasonably as good a job as pretty much anybody can with his hands tied behind his back, given his policy team there who's directing this. And most of those guys are career, just so we are clear, people like Fauci and Birx, those are career CDC, healthcare policy people who have been around for, 4 or 5 decades. And he was stuck with them. But in general, I agree with what he's been doing. I think that he's wrong to criticize any governor, any mayor, any local government official who's ready to start opening up his or her section of the country. I think it should be up to them, clearly. They know what's best. They can advise people who are truly at risk to stay home. That is the basis, the fundamental concept of quarantine in public health is to protect those who are at risk and to quarantine those who are ill, not taking all the healthy people and asking them to stay inside and not work. That makes no sense. We've never done that before. And if you look at other significant, this isn't the first pandemic we've had. We have them every few years. Look at even, a couple of ones that in 1957, 1968, those were both H2N2 influenza outbreaks. They were at least as virulent, at least as lethal as the one that we had, this COVID-19, and there was essentially zero impact to U.S. GDP with those outbreaks, with those pandemics, because we didn't overreact and cause this massive shutdown any more than we do on any other given influenza year. We've had many, many bad flu years. Gosh, 2017-18, we had 70,000 Americans died of influenza alone in that year. And remarkably, there was no shutdown. We didn't cancel school and close playgrounds. We didn't close golf courses and restaurants. And we got through it just fine. Which is, again, not to say that these viruses aren't out there and aren't serious. They absolutely are. They absolutely will result in deaths. We're not happy about that as physicians, and certainly not in public health. But it is the reality of life. And we simply aren't in a position to say we want to drop all deaths to zero. If I wanted to do that, then the corollary is that say, I don't want any more motor vehicle deaths. I hate that people die in car crashes, so let's outlaw cars. But we don't do that. Instead, we say, okay, we'll put, because no one would want to live in that world. So instead, we put seatbelt laws in place and speed limits in place and airbags. But you let people then go on, make a choice for themselves if they want to get into a car, and, people will still die in car crashes.
Yes, and that's why I wanted to peel this and kind of segue it back to where I started with that. In the Andrew Cuomo and him making this impassioned plea that if I didn't, or we didn't do this, or if I let up, it's going to kill, you might kill me, and da-da-da-da-da. He's not taking into account, and he said economics has zero to do with death. Well, no, you are totally so far off of reality with that statement, Andrew, that it isn't even funny. And you're not looking at the impact of that. I mean, as you know, the Hippocratic Oath of doctors, first do no harm. And of this, you got to look in this situation, the way I look at it, is you got to look at the long-term impact of doing this. It's kind of like you probably make choices as doctors with patients all the time. I mean, and sadly, there comes that time when you have to say there's nothing more we can do for you. And, then we know what happens after that. That's a process. This stuff goes, and again, like the virus, you need the virus. My understanding, the virus needs you. It needs you to survive. You need it to get into you, so you kill it, get the herd immunity, you're immune to it, and it doesn't kill the whole flock.
You're exactly right. And maybe a way to look at this, and I use this analogy with other people, Roy, is, this is a war. And in war, people die. If you're a general and running a war, you can't say, well, I'm willing to do whatever it takes, but I'm not willing to lose any of my soldiers. Okay? Because if you do that, if you say, I'm not willing to lose any soldiers, the next thing you are is a slave. Because you can't win a war that way. Okay? There always are some casualties. You've got to do it within the limits of what's acceptable. And, for example, I don't think it's acceptable to say we're going to, rather than risk losing any lives, we're going to destroy the entire economy, destroy everybody's livelihoods, make everyone become chronically ill with heart disease, cancer, diabetes, substance abuse, so that because we can't tolerate the idea that someone's going to die of a viral infection. Unfortunately, you can't run that way. And so I think that we're wrong. If anyone tells you that health isn't tied to economics, they are dead wrong, because there's huge collateral damage. And so I would say that all those people who develop, or not all of them, but a share of them who develop heart disease and high blood pressure and diabetes and cancer and substance abuse issues coming out of this are absolutely collateral damage. They are part of not damage from the virus, but damage from the response to this virus, from the fact that people like Cuomo and Newsom have responded the way that they have.
Yes, I use a variation of that analogy all the time. I mean, whether you're Colonel, General, Commander-in-Chief, President of the United States, you got a choice to make. Send 100 men to their sure death to save 100,000, or do you save that 100 and sacrifice 100,000? Now, which choice are you going to make? And maybe that's a little bit over-exaggeration of what we're doing, but I think we're concentrating too much on the 100 and not looking at the 100,000.
Exactly, which is, and unfortunately, there are people who always misinterpret this to say that either that we're saying that the virus isn't real or that we don't care about those deaths, and that is not it at all. I mean, unfortunately, the reality of life is that it's dangerous. People are exposed to things. People always will die from these viral outbreaks. It's tragic. No one wants it to happen, and if I could wave a magic wand and make it not happen, I would. But that's not real life. And unfortunately, the decision we are in as leaders, whether it's in public health or in government, is you have to find that balance to mitigate as much suffering and pain and disease as you can, but to do it within the framework of preserving people's civil rights, their civil liberties, and all the things that that we love as being free Americans. I mean, God knows all of the people who gave their lives in the American Revolution, they did so saying, I'm doing this for a greater good, because they were not willing to give up all their rights. And I don't think most people want to give up all of their freedoms, so that we can essentially overreact to what's going to turn out in the end to be a glorified bad flu season.
Dr. Kelly Victory, I want to thank you because I know for me, and I think for a lot of our listeners and a lot of people across the board, you've been keeping me insane in an incredibly insane world that I see going on there. We'll do it again next week. Thanks for being on the show.
Sounds great. Take care.
Dr. Kelly Victory, facts not fear on coronavirus. I really mean that. I mean, and we're going to have Dr. Steve Holtze on, I think, tomorrow, and I think he has some information just like this on that. But if it wasn't for a few of these voices out there that were running some credibility or sounding an alarm or saying the emperor has no clothes on this stuff, this is what the reality of the situation is, we could be in a deeper trouble than we are. I mean, even though I disagree with Trump on him not supporting Brian Kemp, at least he's not stepping in and doing things to stop what's happening in Georgia. And as Dwayne said before, Dr. Kelly Victory, that needs to spread across the other 49 states. I've said it many times. Do not let the cancer of California spread across the other 49 states. Remember back on March 19th, over a month ago now, Gavin Newsom was the first one to pull the stay-at-home orders. Governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, did it the next day. That is the first and third most populous states in the United States of America. Texas is number 2. Texas kicked off the opening with Governor Greg Abbott about a week ago. Ron DeSantis has done that. Oh, run the one, I think it's what is it, the doctor? I've got the tweet up there. I want to get to that, to put that up there about the sunlight. This is a doctor. He was a former FDA commissioner for Trump. Just resigned recently, but he's saying the same thing. He said it before the press conference about sunlight. Only 2 cases out of a gazillion have been known to be, yes. Dr. Scott Gottlieb, he's a former FDA commissioner under Donald Trump, said a study of 318 outbreaks in China found transmission occurred outdoors in only one, involving just 2 cases. Most occurred in the home or public transportation. Raises key chance for states to move service outdoors, religious gym classes, restaurants, etc. There you go. And he's been on this lockdown stuff advisors. He still advises Trump and the COVID-19 team. He's telling you 1 case out of 318 where this started in Wuhan, China, came from outside. It's if you're indoors, and where are they telling you to stay? Indoors. Stay at home. They want you to stay in the hellhole of death, despair, and destruction of New York City. And that's what cities, and that's what they want to put you in if you let them. Because as they're pointing out, sunlight kills this stuff. Not only for that, it takes your sanity away. And you know the best way to get vitamin D? That's have sunlight. The natural way you get vitamin D, that's sunlight hitting your skin. You were not built to live in a cocoon. You were not built to be jammed in like sardine cans on public transportation and subways and 100-story skyscrapers and everything else. You were built to experience life in the wide open spaces. And when you get that, and if they want to take it away, just look at New York City, Wuhan, China, or anywhere else where this density stuff is going on and see what the results are. Where is our worst outbreak going? Out in the hinterlands, it's not. This is coming from everywhere, across the board. It doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure this stuff out. We're going to have Dr. Steve Holtze on tomorrow at 5:30 and get his perspective on it. I'm pretty sure it's probably going to be pretty much the same as Dr. Kelly Victory's, another voice of reason in this world of insanity we've been going through here. Be a man. Stop the ban. I hope Idaho starts recalling their governor. We need to start recalling ours and get this stuff, get this show on the road, get back to the way it was before March 19th, where you lived in the greatest country in the history of the world. We'll be back tomorrow on Fast Friday with Stephanie. Till tomorrow, see ya!